Yo, 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 yo. What's up, all you burners, starters, and potheads, and especially all you gardeners out there? This is Mr. Weedman and Big Earl with the Grow Hour. Big Earl, my brother, how the hell are you?
What's up, man? I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. You want to know why?
Why?
Because we have our friend Terp Fiend back in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Terp, how you been, brother? It's been a minute.
Good, man. Good, man. Hope everybody's been well. Hope everybody's grow is healthy and happy. Everybody's staying good and baked.
I love it, man. We missed you, man. It's been a minute. We haven't talked. You said before we started the show, you reached out to us because we haven't talked in a while, and I'm super happy you reached out to Earl, brother, and to have you back on the show. I think it's the 5th or the 6th time, from what I remember. My stoner brain is a little out there, but I love you, and I'm so happy everything's going well for you. I'm not on social media. I'm not on Instagram anymore, but I do catch you on X or Twitter, and some of the flower you've been posting on Twitter. If you haven't checked out Terp Fiend on Twitter, you need to go to his Twitter. We'll plug it at the end of the show so you can check him out. But the pictures you've been showing has been marvelous.
Thank you, man. Like I said, since you disappeared from Instagram, I had to, I don't hear from everybody. Like we talked about, that's the biggest thing in all these social media problems and pages getting shut down is losing contact with all the people and your friends and your gromies and your, just all the people that you talk shop with all the time. And so, I try to reach out with I had to send a snail mail. I had to send a piece of snail mail to a grow homie whose page got shut down on Instagram. And all I had was like his address from where he had ordered seeds from me. Had to send him snail mail because I hadn't heard from him in so long. Luckily, he was good. Everything was cool. Everybody's busy.
Snail mail.
And it had been so long since I had mailed a letter.
Did you have to go to the post office and buy stamps?
I go to the post office every day.
There you go. So you're good. What are you smoking on?
Mecha-Godzilla.
Ooh.
Mecha-Godzilla. It's a sunset sherbet wedding cake royal goo. So it's got like this kind of floral, almost plasticky top end with just a bottom end of like old school dank kush. As you guys know as well as anybody that knows me, I'm a kush guy. So anytime I can smoke a little bit more kush, I'm about that life.
I'm excited because Big Earl's coming to town on Sunday. He's got some OGKush is what I'm going to be on my menu, and then some Kush Mints too there, Big Earl. My man. Yeah. Josh D96 brought it back, right? From what you told me?
Yeah, we revived it. It's out there, I think. And some people say it's what the Loompas headband is. I don't know if Terp knows anything about that, but some people say the Loompas headband and the 96 are the same. But I grew them both. And, they're under different spectrum LEDs, but they don't look exactly the same for me. So, but you'll have to tell me when I drop some off.
I don't feel like it's the SFV triangle cut. I mean, if it is an OGKush, right?
Yeah.
Josh D.
I was told...
Yeah,
I was told the Josh DOG is OGKush, but it's the same as the Loompas that somebody just like mixed up a cut a long time ago.
Something like that. Like it looked a little thicker to me than like the traditional OGKush that I've seen, but that all varies so much grow to grow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, with a lot of those cuts, like I would see them in a huge commercial grow, so I would see them like just absolutely maxed out. And then seeing a plant in somebody's like closet grow is a whole different situation. So it's like a lot of those old school like staple cuts. If I saw them in a huge commercial grow. And so I maybe saw a 4-foot tall bush of it, Whereas like generally when you see one little nug on the internet, that's the whole thing about buying stuff by a picture is that it's so hard to tell what a plant's really going to look like in your grow.
Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting.
Cultures too. Tissue cultures, so like way different. I usually don't like to flower out tissue cultures, but I had them and I was like, fuck it, And man, dude, I got about halfway through that grow and was like, God, this is why I don't flower out tissue cultures. So many branches, so many leaves, constant defoliation. Like week 5 and 6, I'm like, what? Like, what did I do? But it all turned out pretty good.
Nice. What are you smoking on, Earl?
This one's the Fat Sweaty Bulldog. Last bits I have of that. I think the other one I rolled up was Nightmare. That's what I was trimming on today, at least.
Ooh, Nightmare.
Do either of you know who the Fat Sweaty Bulldog is?
No, I'd like to know.
That came from...
No, not the strain of weed. Fat Sweaty Bulldog is named after something. Do either one of you know who the Fat Sweaty Bulldog is? No.
I do not.
Harpua is the Fat Sweaty Bulldog.
Okay.
Tell our listeners who
Tales
that
from
is.
the Wook Lot. Yeah, it's a fish song. So there's a fish song called Harpua about a little boy named Jimmy and his dog Harpua. And Harpua is the first line. One of the first real lines of the song is "Fat Sweaty Bulldog."
Terp, every time you come on the show, I always learn something new.
Tales from the
Lot.
Culture.
They have a lot of Jerry stuff too, like some different Jerry crosses, and its lineage is like a dog walker BX2 on the dad. So I'm assuming, I can't remember what the mom was. It's from a dude down in St. Louis. He uses like a lot of Star Killer and a lot of the old school dog walker and stuff.
And I'm smoking on some Blue Zushi, grown by my friend Igneous. So thanks for throwing to the cause today, Igneous. Appreciate you. So Earl knows him well. Really good grower. Been doing it for a long time, 16, 17 years. Got his shit together. So today we're talking about pitching pennies in the garden with our friend Terp here. But let's ask Terp, though, before we get started, though, what's been going on with Terp? What lines do you got coming out lately for everyone out there in the world to know about? Any new strains coming out, any new seeds coming out that people need to know about so they can get on your page and order some stuff up? And what's down the road, and what mails do you got coming in?
So just finished up a Nog Chomp around, hit a wall with the fruity stuff. Need to work on some non-fruity stuff for a little while. So the next two projects are going to be a big blackout truffle line. One of my probably to this day favorite desert island, could smoke it just about over everything else type of strains. And most people that know my work or know anything about me have probably run into or encountered the blackout truffle. It's quite notorious. It's one of the only strains I ever bred that I had people that bought it, grew it, and sold it come back and tell me my customers are afraid of it. They ask for something else because it's too much. And I get that. It's one of those things for me that's why I smoke it. It's why I keep it. But I'm working on some new stuff that's all. So every round that I do, I kind of start with a flavor profile. And that could be just as simple as like no fruity stuff. Or it could be more specific as like I'm looking for specifically watermelon, or I'm looking for, guava or something specific. So with this one, it was just really non-fruity moms kind of. And then I'm also working on a new Royal Goo line, more Kush. So that's essentially a Afgoo Long Valley Royal Kush that I've worked 4 or 5 different generations now. I think I'm either doing F3s or F4s this round. And so generally non-fruity stuff. As far as dads, man, I have a blackout truffle dad that I've worked with a few years. When I started the blackout truffle kind of line, it has started with a biochem mom crossed to a white cherry truffle dad. And so generally the mom, I don't like saying this sort of shit because I hate testing. I hate cannabis testing. I generally hate when people quote THC numbers and things like that. But this is a strain that had been tested pretty heavily in Colorado, the biochem, and tested very regularly over 30% THC. Now, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. The thing that always
let me ask you a quick question. I don't want to throw you off topic. No. So is it 30% THCA, and then how much was THC was in there? Did they give you those numbers too?
So I'm speaking much more generally. It's a dispensary cut. So it's one of those cuts in Colorado that generally had to be tested every time, almost every time it was grown, because most of Colorado's testing laws were kind of batch specific, grow specific type of thing.
Gotcha.
So it's one of those. That's why I hate quoting that sort of shit, because one person could go get a 30% test and just go, it tests over 30%. And they're not technically lying, but they're technically not being honest either. The only reason I mention it is because it's a strain that for a long time around Denver notoriously tested high, right? And I mean,
I just talked about testing yesterday on the show we recorded about Colorado.
Yeah.
Fibbing a little bit on their flower. Pretty good on their concentrates, but
so
fibbing
I will say it's
a little bit on their flower.
It's probably the most accurate state as far as testing now, only because they've had testing for almost longer than any other state. Their testing is pretty rigorous. Now, I could point to 3 or 4 places where it could be better. And what happens is with most of these states, when they just go legal, there's maybe 1, 2 testing labs. So there's almost an incentive for these labs to provide higher tests because a lot of places will literally charge you a little bit extra under the table, and they'll give you a 35% test if you want it, right?
Yep.
So in Colorado, the first little period was like that. You would often see in the first 5 years of legalization, tons of 30+%. Then as testing rules got more strict, testing regulations got more strict, testing standards got more strict, those 30% are much more rare today. Not to say they're unicorns, but it's not like it was early in testing in legalization.
Gotcha.
We talked about that. Remember when we talked with Lev?
Yep.
We talked about all that stuff.
Yep.
So like if somebody tells me they have 30% tests and it's from a newly legal state, I'm almost always dubious of that. But if it's from a place like Colorado, it's generally a little more accurate.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sweet. Let me ask you another question before Earl. How many moms do you keep?
It all depends at the situation. Like, so I'm not an over-cloner guy. I have a couple that I've kept and worked with for years. I almost always prefer to work from new seed. So depending on what I'm doing, I have a couple of the old school sorbet, Nagtampa, blackout. To some of my staples, I have like a mom that I've kept. But I'm going to be brutally honest with you. That's almost more for me just being able to keep it and smoke it than it is like, because a lot of when I'm doing a new filial gen, I'm almost always starting new, entirely new plants from seed. And I generally feel like you get healthier, more vigorous plants when you're starting from seed. I agree. And so while it's not always the most advantageous way to run a commercial grow, it is really solid for making seeds because you're getting much stronger moms and dads. They're not extremely stressed from decades of over-cloning. Like we were talking about even the OGKush. It's one of those cuts that if you run it, you can see its age. It's just slow. It's slow veggies. It throws single or double-bladed leaves. It just doesn't have that like pop, right?
Right.
And so running and starting from seed and breeding a lot from seed means that you're going to get a lot more healthy, a lot more vigorous plants.
I've seen that on the clone I'm growing outside right now. It's like fucking looks like a zombie clone. It's like really weird. The leaves pop out and they're all curled up, and then they grow out, and it's like 1 leaf, 2 leaves tops. Yep. Now, here's the crazy thing. Yeah, it's been nuts. But now the crazy thing, the toppers now are finally starting to really blossom out, and they're growing 4 leaves. Not your typical 7 or 9.
You said it re-veg though, right?
Yes,
That's the re-veg you're seeing.
That's the re-veg I'm seeing. Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
Too.
Yeah. But it's weird how the leaves like start out like a fucking grape leaf, all like in a circle, like a little round circle, all tucked into one another. Then it just all of a sudden, it's just as the day goes out, you can see it spreading out. It's really crazy. I've never seen no shit like that before.
And when it gets deep enough in there, like if you go with a deep re-veg, the new growth grows out of the flowers, which is cool. Like I always just leave all the flowers on it, and like all the new growth just pops out of the flowers, which is once you take the flower off, it's like all connected and kind of normal, but looks goofy.
Right. Yeah. We did. It was crazy. Like I said, I've never seen this grow like this before. I was like, holy, because 99% of what I've grown has come from seed. I got a clone from Earl once, and I got a clone from my buddy Midwest Terps, and that's it. I've never grown from clone because when we had you on a long time ago, you had said the same thing. You like growing from seed because you get stronger plants, and I see it. Growing 2 clones or seeing people grow from clone versus popping a seed. I've seen the beautiness of growing seed versus clone. I know some people have to do it. I'm not here to say what's good or what's bad. I'm a rookie. So
I also don't get into a lot of difficult arguments about the lineages or the provenance of my genetics. Quite honestly, because I popped it all from seed, so I don't have to argue with somebody. Is this the such and such a cut, or did this come from something? As long as the lineage is proper for me, man. A lot of that stuff, I trust people when they say like I have this legitimate cut and I've been working with it for 20 years. I'm not going to argue with people. Like most of the stuff I run, I popped it from seed. I either made it or it's stuff that I, literally picked from seed myself. And so it avoids a lot of those petty little arguments about like, is this the real cut, the only cut? Is it the proper cut? Is it, I don't care.
I got you.
I just don't deal with cuts. So it like makes a lot of my life so much easier. Like I don't deal with pests. I don't have problems from outside the grow. Like a lot of problems that come with taking in cuts from other people is just too much.
We've said so many times, like, oh, you have some bugs that just broke out? Where'd you just get your clones from? What?
Yeah, bro, my favorite is when they blame the soil guy at the grow store. Yeah. That's my favorite. And I go, soil, did you take in cuts? Yes, of course I did. You got it from the cuts.
You got it from the cocoa that has nothing to eat in it. That's where the bugs come from. That's where the tissue culture, man. I ran a lot of seeds. I cloned them a lot too. But the clones take on the wounds of the parent, and so it's impossible. You could be the best cloner in the fucking world, and your clones can be beautiful every time, but they're still just like, the first 5, 10, 20 generations, you might not notice it, but it's like every scar adds up.
Yep.
But these tissue cultures, I'll tell you, and I should have just been like, no, take a cut and wait an extra 3 weeks or 4 weeks and then rerun it, But I did, and they were so vigorous. So, but one more generation in, it should like really show what the plant was, hopefully.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. The tissue culture itself was just a little different. So I think the next generation is going to be like a big difference, like from seed to generation 1 kind of, But so we're talking about pinching pennies. Because we's getting so effing cheap out there, and there's a big, running a garden costing you $1,000 a month. There's a big difference between getting your, 5 pounds and your 1 pound off of it kind of shit. And, there's a lot of areas that you're forced to spend money, and not even forced, you're coerced into spending money at. And so I think there's like 2 general ways that most people look at it. Most people are looking at it, I think, get as cheap of equipment as possible. And then like you replace what you replace, which I totally get. Or you spend the money now, you take advantage of your warranties, you take advantage of like, hopefully this is, coming from like a good place. It's going to last. It's got a 5-year warranty. It's got a 1-year warranty. I don't have to worry about this and that. And you spend the money now and kind of hold on to it later. What's your general direction with that? Do you have one way or another? Is it situational for you? Is there something you would tell people about starting up their garden, going with brand new, going with brands, anything like that, just off the rip?
Yeah, so every single grow, it doesn't matter if it's a closet, it doesn't matter if it's a 150,000 square foot grow. Every grow should be approached from the angle of cost versus yield, right? And everybody will immediately tell you, wait, it's not all about just growing as much as you possibly can. We're growing boutique varieties. We might not. Every grow is input versus output. So you need to start every single grow thinking about whether you need to spend extra money. And there are a few places where you're going to want to spend a little bit of extra money. But you can grow the same weed with a cheap lamp that you can grow with a super expensive lamp. I've seen both grow amazing weed, and I've seen both grow trash. So your gear is only as good as, like you said, warranties, things like that. Number one with that is shopping at a grow shop. Now, depending on where you live, this can be a little tricky, but your best bet is almost always to shop with a box brick and mortar store, because they usually keep up with shit like warranties, things like that. They usually honor straight out the box refunds or returns. If you got a lamp and it just craps out while it's still under warranty, a lot of those places will just hand you a lamp and walk you out the door. So knowing where to spend your money early on is a big factor. But another big factor is just sitting down and having an idea of what your grow is going to look like scale-wise, and then walking through just a basic list of what do I need and then going item by item and figuring out, like, do I need $12 pots? No, probably not. If you can find those for cheaper and save a little money, maybe. If you're spending money on lamps, that's a little place where you could spend a little bit more money and definitely get a little bit more bang for your buck. But at the same time, I can't count how many people right now are running LEDs that are overpowered in a small space that's too small for the lamp they're running. And it's another one of those situations where having a little foresight into the brands you're buying, the gear you're buying, the type or the quality, whether we're talking about HPS, metal halide, LED, whatever the situation may be, kind of having a little bit of nuance about what you're buying. But number one, more money does not equal more weed. Oftentimes, more money equals less money at the end of the day, and that's it. So the more you piss away on super expensive upgrades, super luxury shit. My favorite is hydro systems for new growers. I don't know how many millions of dollars have probably now been wasted on people who walked into a grow store, didn't know what they needed, saw this really cool hydro setups, put together on the floor, and got sold into it when they didn't know how to grow a pot in a plant in a tent. Yeah. And it's like knowing that extra money isn't going to get you more weed if you don't know what you're doing, and knowing if you're starting out that a lot of traps are set for you to spend money on stuff you don't need.
For sure.
Be a lot of used equipment out there eventually.
If you live in a legal state, if you live in a legal weed state, you go to Craigslist. I'm going to be honest with you. Your first grow, go to Craigslist, take some bleach, some rubbing alcohol, scrub down whatever you get super easily, spend as little money on your first grow as you can, get some weed in your pocket, and then figure out if it's something you want to do again.
Yeah. Here's another thing too.
Marketplace.
Yeah, Facebook, another one too. Here's another thing too. Start off growing in one pot outdoors.
Yeah.
And see if you like it. See if you like it. It's free. Yeah. The sun's free. The soil costs you a little bit of money. You can buy fucking just coast to fucking Maine. Just throw a fucking pot in there. Get some fucking good nutrient line that's not going to kill you. And try that. Because we all want to learn how to grow. Yeah. And not pay for weed. But if you spend thousands of dollars, $2, $3, $4, $5,000, and all of a sudden a year goes by and you're frustrated, no one's helping you, no one's giving you advice. You should listen to the Grow Hour though. But with Terp Fiend especially and Big Earl, they're the heavy hitters we have on this show all the time. So if you're buying all this equipment and in a year from now you're done and you don't like to do it and it sits in your fucking basement for the next 5 years collecting dust, and spiders are going to love that area. So the second thing is too, it reminds me a lot of the craft beer industry. I have experience, 12 years experience in the craft beer industry. And when craft beer started booming, everybody wanted to be a craft beer brewer and bought equipment and bought all this shit, many 5-gallon brews. And you saw all the companies selling the barrels that you can make your beer in. You know where most of that's at? Most of that is it's all 100%. Thanks, Mrs. Weedman. Mrs. Weedman just bought me a nice little cocktail.
Nice
honey infused drink. We talked about making popsicles last night on the show, and with infused honey. And a buddy of mine made some infused honey for me. Nice. And so this is one of the recipes. It's not a popsicle; it's a fucking cocktail, though.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Oh, Mrs. Weedman, toast to you.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you a quick and funny story. So I was working in Denver in 2016, and I had a friend come to me and said, "Hey, I know this young kid. He's got this grow, and it's a really nice built grow. He doesn't know what to do with it. Like, he's got like 3 plants under 4 rooms. Like, he just didn't know where to start." So I go and I check out this grow. And at this point, I had run what I'll call house trap grows for probably 18 years. And this was by far one of the top 5 nicest built home trap grows that I had seen. And this was essentially a spot in the country in middle of Colorado, nowhere. We'll just be easy. And essentially it was a weed rental. We could knock down walls if we wanted to. We could do anything we wanted, but rent was like $3,500 a month. No questions asked. If you didn't have it paid, get out. So when I get there, almost every room full, power done, everything tricked out, the nicest brand new Gavita lights, everything prime. Like you don't get to walk into grows like this, because most of the people that build out grows like this know how to grow weed. They're just generally not people who just spent $30,000, $40,000 on this build out. And these kids didn't know what to do. They had gotten a couple of cuts from a buddy. They had one room that was 10 lights, one room that was another 7 lights. By the time I left, we had put another grow upstairs. It was another all organic grow we had done. And when I got there, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to clone. They didn't know how to start enough plants to even fill all this space. And within no time, we had filled the grow, got everything running. Everything was great. But the point being, I had seen this kid spend so much money, because he would just go to the grow store and go like, what do I need? And they would be like, you need these expensive ass lights. And they would be like, okay, cool. I need 30 of them. And these dudes at the grow store loved him, but literally didn't know enough about growing weed to start enough clones to just fill all the space. And, it's like, we all get excited when we're ready to start, or when we really have that first little nut of money that we're trying to put together, like our first little grow situation. But what you don't realize is, if you spend that money at the beginning, that's now cost and overhead. And I know most people don't think about that if you've never worked the commercial side of weed, because most people just want to grow head stash. They just want to grow some weed for themselves, make it easy. I don't want to pay a dealer anymore. I get that. But at the end of the day, every one of our goals should be to produce as much. We all want our jars as full as they can be, right? Mm-hmm. So like our goal should always be to grow as much as we humanly can on as little as we possibly can.
So would you spend the money up front now so you don't have to spend it later? Or would you spend it cheaply now and then learn your trade and then spend it later on the better stuff, better quality stuff? If you want to.
That's definitely your best option. Your best option is to start. If we're talking about, I'm starting my first ever time I'm putting up lights. I've never put plants under lights. Like you said, your number one goal should be to just get through harvest number 1. Because at that point, you're going to learn a lot about the process. You're going to learn a lot about your commitment to the process. And you're going to learn that it's not just free and easy weed. That's not growing weed. That anybody that tells people that is the greatest lie in cannabis. Growing weed is farming and it's janitorial work. That's what growing weed is. And if you're not willing to put in the hard parts, which is usually failing, fucking up, killing plants, having to throw shit in the trash, having to make decisions, that's learning to grow. So it's like, get through the first couple, and then you'll have a better idea of, you know what, I bet with better nutrients, maybe I could do a little bit better. Or if I had a little bit bigger tent or I had a little bit bigger space, I could do a little bit better. But getting through those first couple of grows in as little input as possible should be your goal. Because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know if you're going to like it past start. And you're going to have a much better idea of whether this is for you beyond just your first 6 months of growing your first crop, right?
Yeah.
And so by that point, I would hope you've spent a little bit of time online, you've gone to a couple forums, you maybe listened to a couple podcasts, and you at least have a little bit better of an idea of where you could expand, right? But even still, your goal should be as much product as you can grow for as little possible input. And that should go through all of your growing career, whether you're just starting your first closet, whether you're popping a 4x8 at, grandma's house, or if you're about to start your first large scale commercial grow. Input versus output is the name of the game, always. And even if you're growing boutique varieties of land-raised, strange, brand new stuff, you want as much of it as you can possibly get, right? That's all of our goal. Should be all of our goal at all time.
Yep. Yeah. I love, I started small and just a nice 2x4x6 tent. It was great for the first 10 grows. It was just manageable for me. I got to learn from my mistakes. I got to learn what I did right, what I did wrong. Right, I took notes every day on how my plants looked, how I watered them, what times, and it was just manageable. And I love the man because I'm not. I don't have time for a big room. One day I will, but I don't. But I love to grow, and I think so I spent less to learn, to see if I kept on wanting to do this, and I'll always grow. To take a little break here and there, as I tell people, sometimes you might need a break. If you're not doing this for a living, but you have to go out and make a living, and you're working, and you got kids, and you take a break. If you made enough weed to last you a few months, wait till you run out, or you're down to your last jar and you're like, oh shit, I need to start going. Just that's the thing. I think people think when they want to home grow, and home grow, I talked about this on another show. The seed business is going to be a $3 to $4 billion industry here by 2030, 2035. Okay. Whoever's making their tracks now is going to have that nice little in the future, because more and more people, as more and more states allow, and also overseas too, you're gonna be able to home grow there. They're gonna look for the genetics in this country. They're gonna want a Terp Fiend genetic. They're gonna want a Big Earl genetic, and they're gonna pay eventually because they're gonna want it. Here we go though. Are you gonna be able to last in your home grow? Start small. Start with a small little tent. Buy used equipment. Borrow somebody who's not using it anymore. Say, hey, buddy, we're friends. Let me try it for a minute. If I like it, let me grow a couple times. If I like it, I'll pay full price. I'm going to keep on doing it. But you're not using it. I'll split the bounty with you. I'll give you half of my grow because you gave me the equipment, to let me use it for a while. Think outside the box a little bit when it comes to this, because spending $2, $3, $4, $5 grand and in 1 year you're going to be gone is just not even worth it. Look for the ways to do this as a learning experience first, and learn to enjoy the process. You're going to fuck up. You're going to get some weed. My first grow, I got weed. I was great. It was smokable. It was delicious. I did. I mean,
it wasn't because I fucked up. It got stolen, but it's.
Oh yeah. So, but you would have had weed.
Yeah. I grew really nice weed.
Yeah. And it was good. My first grow was good. The leaves were turning yellow way too quick, but I got buds. I probably got 1.5 ounces of good smokable weed, and I was fucking happy as a pig in shit with my first grow, and that was my starting point. And once again, you start again, and just learn the experience and learn to enjoy the plant. That's what I'll always say. That learn to enjoy the plant, because it's an amazing experience to grow indoor, outdoor, and get on forums and learn from different websites and podcasts, and just see if it's for you for the long term. And if you think 1 or 2 plants is fine for you to manage, good for you. You found your niche and you found your knack. So Earl, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's perfect. But maybe so you brought up lights before. Maybe we can go through some different equipment and give some advice on like where we can save money. Maybe some brands that we like that have good warranties. That, hey, maybe it's worth spending some money here. So for lights, for me, we did a whole episode on this. The research into the company is huge. There are so many companies out there now with 5-year warranties selling their company 3 years later. So when you call back, they're like, oh no, we have the version 3.0 now. And we do offer a 5-year warranty, but not on that, not on the one you have actually, because that was the old company. This is the new company that we sold to Clark over there in sales. And, so there's a lot of those companies out there. But I think knowing the diodes you want is big. Knowing the driver is the right size, because a lot of those LEDs will push fucking a bunch of lights to one driver, one ballast, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, these were tested at this rate, this spectrum, this power on 3.5 watts per diode, and this light's running 2 watts per diode, which is like a pretty common thing you see. Just little things like that, going to the light. But some of those LEDs do have 5 and 10 year warranties, and some of them are badass companies, and some of them you can like have a fucking 10-year light,
What's funny is that decision seems to be fairly certain and a fairly easy one now. So even just six years ago, there was a decision to make. Am I running HPS? Am I running LED? It's almost no decision left. Like, there's almost no decision to be made anymore. I say this as a 20-year HPS grower who eventually had to adapt to the times, like LED just wins. Like when you look at the little bit of money it's going to cost you up front versus the amount of money you're going to save in power, it's unreal. But like Earl said, when I jumped into LEDs originally, I had a really rough transition because growing from LEDs and growing with HPS is two entirely different worlds, both on the macro and on the micro. It's just a different world. How you handle heat, how you handle waterings, how you handle feedings, the signs that they've had too much change. And there's a lot of in that initial decision. If you buy the biggest lamp you can, especially if you're a tent, a closet, small room grower, if you go and buy the biggest, brightest lamps you can buy, you're almost going to certainly fuck up your first few rounds because they're almost always too bright unless you're running in a warehouse. Most of them are brighter than a small space, so you can use a lot less lamp in your space than you really think you need and run it at a lower setting and get a lot more bang for your buck. Running HPS for 20 years, if you had a HPS burn, it was obvious. Your plant either bleached or it burnt. That is not the case with LEDs. They start to show all kinds of weird phosphorus uptake issues, nitrogen uptake issues. It's really crazy. And as somebody who everything else is dialed in, but you just swapped your lamps, it can be a big transition because I can measure everything in my grow and I can see real easily if something's off, if something's not right, if something's not perfect. And then you keep hitting your head against the wall and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's because you just bought too much lamp when you started. You just ended up running too much lamp for your space. The LEDs are freaking everything out. And just cutting down your LEDs saves so much headache.
What do you mean by cutting? What do you mean by cutting down?
I mean, just brightness, like running
brightness.
Yeah, running less wattage for your space. So not buying some crazy over wattage light for a 4x4, right? You don't need a lot of LED in a 4x4. Whereas if you start getting into bigger spaces, rooms, warehouses, things like that, obviously you're going to need a little bit more lamp. But like I see tons of, I do a lot of just grow, helping people deal with grow problems, and just people hit me up and like, hey, what is this? What's going wrong? And they almost always just send me one pick of a leaf. And they're like, what is this? What is the toxicity? What is this thing? And I'm like, that's not how these problems work. Your entire grow is a symbiosis of different variables. And every one of them is relevant to what is wrong with your plant. So for you, it looks like, is that a nitrogen issue or a phosphorus issue? It's not that simple. And most grow problems are a little more complicated because me telling you, oh, it's a nitrogen problem doesn't help you fix the problem in your grow. So more often my goal in trying to diagnose things is like, I want to give you a fix so that you can leave here and go have your plants look a little bit better tomorrow than they did today. And so all of those things, nutrients, lighting, airflow, the size of your grow, making sure it's airtight and light tight and things like that. Those are all initial variables we need to look at when we're setting up our first situations.
Yeah. The HPS to LED, I don't think is maybe a valuable information anymore. But the biggest problem that I saw when people went from HPS to LED was that they didn't recognize that there was a big difference between room temperature and leaf temperature. And so those HPS were warming up these leaf temperatures, at least for part of the plant, and the LEDs weren't doing that. And so they get all the, like you said, the very weird deficiencies or just like weird things happening in general. It's like almost cultivar specific. And you say, no, bro, your room needs to be warmer and a little bit and more humid. What? Like, no, warmer and more humid. But it was so big. It was so big. What about fans? Do you have any fans you like? I know the Hurricanes are 1 year, and those are like the market normal. If you run anything different that you like with nice warranties or anything, something that you think's money saver.
That's the part. I think fans are the one part that you're best off buying from a brick and mortar, because they're almost the one part that are going. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Like fans just being one of these parts that are almost always moving, whether it be like inline duct fans or whether it be like fans on the wall. Both of them are heavy use parts in your grow. They're parts that probably break more often than anything, and that's just the nature of them. It kind of comes down to budget. The best stuff in the fan department tends to be the stuff that's used in big ag. So the really heavy, like metal caged fans for, wall fans and stuff like that. The over-engineered stuff is usually the best. But for a newer grower, you really don't have those kind of budgets. Most of the inline fans that I've used suck. Some of them are definitely worse than others. Like a lot of the first 10 things that pop up if you type inline fan into Amazon are horrible. But at the end of the day, they're super cheap. So it's like there is a little bit of a trade-off in that if you're going to spend a little bit more money on those sort of things, go buy them from a brick and mortar store, because they're often easier to deal with because it's heavy too. That's the other thing. So now if it breaks and I got to ship it somewhere, that's a much bigger fucking headache than if I just go to the grocery store and I go, hey man, I've had this thing for 2 months and it just crapped out. Like I said, they normally send you out the door with a new inbox product, so it's never an issue. But with stuff like lamps, with stuff like fans, this stuff is so big and bulky. If you've got to return it to somebody, that's a burden. That's a fucking headache. Like that's, so those are usually things like, if you can, you should usually buy that sort of stuff from somewhere like a brick and mortar store that's going to give you a little bit better return situation, ability to yell at somebody if it goes wrong. Like, not yell at somebody, but, have a discussion with somebody.
Yeah. Well, and they keep, if you have an account, you can go back and be like, when did I buy this fan? It has a 5-year warranty. They
usually keep all that sort of shit on file. So it's real easy to just like, and to be honest, if you live in a legal state or you live somewhere that has a decent grow shop, they're always going to be more willing to work with you on things like price. If they see your face and they know you're buying, this and that, and you're spending with them, even if you're just a smaller customer, a lot of those places are more willing to help you out, to go a little bit further, give you a 10% discount or knock a little bit off or throw some pots in or something, Yeah,
for sure. No, for sure. I think inlines too, people like to use them to get air from like one side of a room to another. But I'm a super huge fan of, especially if you have like a decent, like what would be like a decent house garden, using them to I like to blast walls and get real high air movement like away from my plants, which encourages a lot of air movement over my plants. But I think it's in the basement, and so like bugs and stuff like that are harder to control sometimes. But when I get that real heavy airflow going away from my plants, but still affecting them by hitting my walls, I feel like I can get a 5-year fan instead of a 1 year, like a hurricane, and it's just like, for my space is just fucking perfect. It's beautiful. And, adding a little sleeve onto even a drum inline fan, a little sleeve, get that air moving straight instead of like barreling out, It works really well in my space, at least.
One thing I will say while we're on fans, just because I think this is the biggest situation I can think of in my time growing that I can really think of as far as fan situations. So is really figuring out how big of a fan do I need for the space that I'm running. So nobody tells you this, and the grocery store, my guys might not. If you put an 8-inch can fan onto a 4x4 tent, you are going to suck the entire room down in about 3 seconds. It's overkill. It's just a lot. Really knowing this, the CFM of what you're running, and then, just knowing the size of duct work and all of that sort of shit. So, you can generally get by with smaller than 8-inch, 6-inch fans or 4-inch fans in like a 4x4. If we're talking about 4x4, I like to run 8 on a 4x8 because then you can run it 8-inch fans, because then you can turn it down just a smidge, run it at a lower variable speed, and then if you need it, you can always cut it up. But like that's one of those things that like airflow in your tent is also going to dictate how much and how often you water. So it's like we're once again talking about it's all a cycle. So like if you're not moving air fast enough, your pots are going to sit soggy. You're never really going to optimize. But also pulling air too fast means you're just pulling the air right back out of the pot. Pulling the water right back out of the pot. And so there has to be kind of a balance of this. All goes into controlling humidity and controlling temperature and things like that as well. But just kind of figuring out how much can fan do I need? How much inline fan do I need? How much is this going to pull down my tent? I've also seen 8-inch fans nearly break 4x4 tents because it just pulls such a vacuum that the poles start to bend. And it just literally sucks the whole tent in. So it's like, that's a big one for me. It's just kind of making sure you've got the right size fans and ducting for your space.
Yeah. The dry tents. I don't know if you've seen those dry tents, but it's like a tent, but where the screens would be on the bottom, it's like a thick black mesh that lets air through, but no light. And they only have 8-inch holes on the top of them. At least the ones that I had. They're 3x3 tents, 8-inch fucking duct.
Most of them have 8-inch ducts, but the thing is, you could fit a 6-inch pipe in an 8-inch duct because most of them cinch. Yeah, most of them either cinch or you could always throw a clamp on it. But a lot of the ones that I've seen now, they either have a single thing with like a pull like you'd have on your jacket type of thing, the little pull thing, exactly, or they'll have a double sleeve. So there'll be one inside that covers it and then a second, so it keeps it more light tight. But that all depends on what kind of tent you're running and what kind of situation. And once again, we are kind of talking now generally about home growers, smaller growers, probably a bedroom or smaller. All of this changes when you start talking about a grow that's maybe slightly bigger than a bedroom, if we will, right? Because you start to have all of this discussion becomes a little bit bigger, a little bit more, the humidity discussion, the lighting discussion. But generally, most of what we've hit on here is more for like home growers, just getting a startup, newer growers, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, it will. I ended up building a PVC skeleton inside my 3x3s because I wanted that really high air movement. They were dry tents, and like I had them in my flower room, and so like especially right off the bat, I would have liked my humidity right off like those first few days to be lower, and so. But yeah, PVC skeleton inside those bad boys can do wonders. What about so pH pens? I'm a believer in both good and shitty pH pens. I have my good pH pen, and when something's weird, I check it with my shitty one that's been sitting there for 9 months. And if they're off, I order, a new probe or something, or find a way to, see who's right, maybe soak them for a little while.
Oh, quick. This is a good one. So every pH pen, the cheapest one that they sell you, if it's an electric pen, it's not the little test strips. Every one of those are ridiculously precise instruments. The problem is they are so fickle that the minute that probe isn't wet, the whole unit is worthless. So this took me a while to figure out, and it wasn't until I was like really working with a dude that like he ran a grow shop, and he was like, listen, bro, these are some of the most precise instruments, but the minute that probe goes dry, the whole thing is worthless. So rule number 1 of pH pens is that probe has to stay wet at all time. You usually get like some storage solution, but every grow shop, every Amazon, everywhere carries a storage solution for your pH pen. Yeah. But they're as precise as anything we use in our grows, but they are so fragile and so fickle that the moment that thing dries out, the whole thing is worthless.
There's also stuff out there, or at least what I was told from one of the salesmen. So they work on an ion exchange, and if you leave it in a res, like there's some that like some pH pens that you just sit in a res, not only is it going to build some plaque, but it loses it'll exchange over time whatever liquids it has on the inside with the liquids on the outside.
Yeah.
And so you can ruin pens pretty quick.
Even in big grows, I'm not a big fan of leaving them in a solution or in some sort of like in water or in a newt solution, because of what you just said, they will go bad. They will get off really easily. It's another one of those things where you're almost better off to do it while you're mixing as well, because let's say you're mixing just a small 5-gallon bucket, right? Everything you add to that is going to change your readings. Once you're done, the reading is going to be different than it was while you were building that mix of whatever it is. It's going to change throughout. So then you hit the end, and now you've mixed everything together. You want to add your pH up or your pH down. How much of that you add, how long you wait, how that gets mixed, how well it gets mixed is all going to affect that reading that you get. But it's like, if you start with a pen that's not working, you're never going to get a good reading. And if you start with a situation where you've left it in a reservoir and now it's off by 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, like that can really matter. Most of what we do in cannabis is generally within a very short pH range. Like it 5.8 to 6.1, 6.2, almost no matter how you're growing, is the range that we generally all shoot for. 5.8 you can get by in cocoa and soilless. 6.1, 6.2, something in that range is usually better for soils and stuff like that. But like I said, leaving it in the reservoir, not only are you not really getting a super accurate reading, but at the same time, it's going to do damage to your pen long term. And just keeping those things clean, keeping them in the storage solution, and pretty much cleaning it after every use, and then leaving it in a storage solution. Yeah, they're super precise though.
What happens if you
calibrate?
Calibrate.
What happens if you let that storage solution dry out and it sits on your shelf for like 6 months?
Pen's worthless. The minute it dries out, really within 24 hours of it being completely dry, the whole pen is worthless. And the best of my understanding, maybe somebody with more knowledge than I on this would be better. I don't know there's a way to really fix them. I will say the pens that Blue Lab made, I've seen maybe a couple other companies, that you can change the probe out.
Oh, cool.
Is a big one. That's definitely something to look at when you're looking at pH, ppm situations, because if you make that mistake, it's easier to just throw a new probe onto your unit, whereas the ones that are hard, I've seen some of them that are like hard fixed to the reader unit. Those things go out, you're fucked. The whole thing's toast.
So just buy a new one.
Buy a new one. That sucks because they're pretty expensive too. I mean, as far as stuff we use, and there's really not a cheat either. Like with a lot of the stuff that we use, there's an industrial version or there's a larger commercial version that you can get for a little cheaper. Aquarium pH meters, it doesn't matter what kind you get. They're all $75 to $100+.
Yeah.
Easy.
The strips are cheap, aren't they?
The strips are cheap, but the strips are less accurate.
Right,
Usually gets you within a range.
If you have a dark colored liquid, I think if you put a strip into a dark colored liquid, it's going to make your color look a little weird. I feel like.
Oh, that's true too, because so much of what we use is colored. Yeah, you're right.
But they do make now really cheap replacement probes for the Blue Lab.
Yeah.
Because at one point I don't think the new Hawthorne Monsanto bought them, but they signed like a distribute only, like where they were only working with them. At one point I was like, I'm not giving these guys money, and but like $17, I think I ended up finding some replacements for those. But I mean,
that's great.
As far as re-wetting your pH probes, I've done it before, and I didn't notice. I didn't notice it not working. I used the storage solution, and I gave it some time to like soak it back up and really get back into it. And I've, when I can recalibrate it, I will recalibrate it. Not saying that they haven't broken that way, and not saying that it wasn't slightly inaccurate afterwards.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, the problem was always they just don't recalibrate properly after that. And then there's always like a pH difference. So then what you do is you try and remember in your head, oh, it's 0.4 off, and you try and factor that into shit. I've done that move too. Yeah, we've all done that.
What's the real one here? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, so I think a big thing saving money is your light cycle, running lights at night. I think people don't like that because it's harder to work sometimes. But that night light cycle is a game changer, for me at least.
It doesn't matter where you live. Power is cheaper at night.
Yeah, and it's probably cooler.
Yeah.
Outside for your equipment to run. CO2. So like paying for CO2 to save money. The big thing for CO2, yes, it does cost some money. Yes, a 15-pound tank's gonna be like $20 to refill. You got to buy it up front. But CO2 not only, I think it's well worth its money in gold or in the weight on the end, literally, and it allows you to run a warmer room with less stress. And I think you can probably generally save the money on AC that you're spending on the CO2, and you can for sure make more money off your yield than you're spending on CO2.
I want to throw a little caveat.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody that's run less than 10 grows should be running or stressing CO2.
Yeah.
I just don't think that until you have a baseline on how to grow consistently, and how to grow one strain through 3, 4, 5 generation different rounds, and be able to run some level of consistency in your grow, CO2 is only going to complicate things for new growers.
Sure.
And I know it's one of those things that a lot of people look at and go, bottom line, to just buy tank, regulator, the basics, you're into a couple extra $100, and it's hard to justify for a new grower when you haven't realized yet how to grow just a couple of plants and make them healthy and make them grow. CO2 is great for optimization. Once you've hit that point where your grow is consistent, you can grow a consistent product time after time after time. Then being able to add something like CO2 is going to give you those sort of gains and boosts that you see.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing of like taking steroids and you don't really work out and you don't really see any benefit. And then you go, I took the steroids. And then say, well, that's not really how it goes. You have to have the optimum diet. You have to have the workout routine. You have to have all this other stuff. And then steroids is going to take you to the next level. That extra little boost isn't going to help some guy who just set up a tent and has never run a plant. It's just not. Yeah. It's going to complicate things more than it's going to give you extra yield.
Yeah, that's important to point out.
Can you put a mushroom bag in there if you're like a small little tent newbie and you're like 5th or 6th grow and you're like when I got to my 11th or 12th grow, I was like, Earl said, just throw a mushroom bag in there. You got a small tent. You don't need to buy a tank. I was like, sweet.
I think based on now once again, I may be wrong on this, but what somebody told me. So first of all, a tent is not a sealed situation. So that CO2 is probably going to get sucked right the fuck out if you're having circulating air. So first thing, you'd have to turn off all your lamps. All your fans and all of your, and you'd pretty much still only be getting nominal CO2 boost in an area that's probably not going to hold it very well. I can think of better things to spend your money on. If somebody gave you a box of mushroom bags and was just like, here, man, throw these in your grow. Yeah, sure, it's not going to hurt, but it's not an expense that I would waste or incur or spend. The small gains you're going to get from it are not going to be measurable enough to be worth the extra dollars on the front end.
Good to know. Thank you.
But it's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah. So unless you let it get out of hand and like get all fucking nasty, because
Yeah.
Well, most of the things that are contaminants to mushrooms are good for plants. So when you see things like trichoderma and things like that, they're not necessarily bad for plants, but that's a contaminant in the mushroom world.
Yeah. I ran a mushroom bag. Man, people used to give out the good old days. People used to give out samples of everything, and so I ran probably half a dozen different brands of mushroom bags. And in the 4x4 tent, I had them in like a larger room, and I didn't notice I had like a CO2 reader I could bring from work, didn't really notice anything higher there. But in the tent, the whole theory behind it was you put it above your light, the little bit of extra heat helps, and CO2 is heavier than oxygen, so it falls on your plant. Which, like you said, if you have too high of a airflow, then that's not going to do much anyway. But it did read a 5-600 if I'm remembering it right, like a 5-600, which was like better than the normal like 300 or 200 maybe if you're really like sucking that CO2 out of there. But it wasn't like, you know, the 11 to 1500 like how people want to flower today, you know. But it was a little bit for me.
The only grows that I've ever seen seriously benefit from CO2 were one of two things. They were either massive warehouse grows where everything was maximized and now we're just pushing everything to the nth limit, or in sealed grows. So where everything is completely sealed, and then what you can do is you can cycle it on and off. So you'll cycle it in situations where it'll fill the whole area. There'll be a period where it's full, like heavier with CO2, and then you vacate it and move your air. And it's just more timers, more, you know. But I mean, there is situations where it's going to get you more weed. But unless everything else in your grow is at max, perfect, dialed in, it's only going to cause you more problems. Having extra CO2 is really only going to create more problems, both in logistics and in just environmentals.
That's, I mean, at the shop, that's what we used to, you know, max out, learn your food. You're perfect with your food, cool. Learn your airflow, you're perfect with your airflow, cool. You learn your VPD, you're perfect with your VPD, cool. Bring in your CO2 because you want to get up to that, you know, back then when it was bulbs, you want to get over that 1.1 gram per watt or something. Yeah, okay, you're maxing out you're hitting 1.1, that's pretty good for a bulb. It's you know, you want to get up to that mythical 1.5 you've been hearing about with people hit with bulbs. Try adding some CO2. But yeah, it's good to point out that the new, you know, because people do go right off the bat and add the CO2. And you probably just won't need it right away. You'll have different things to think of first right away.
So anytime you want to decide, do I want to add more anything, add more X to my grow, right? Am I going to get results that I can measure? So with anything, whether you want to add more lights, whether you want to add more airflow, can there be a measurable yield at the end? The only way you're ever going to know that is to have a grow that is well dialed in. So like you said, do all of these things right, and now do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And when you can do it again and again and again, it's much easier to figure out, okay, now if I add this is what my yield boost is going to be. This is going to be what I'm going to get. And so the other problem we see in a lot of grows is making too many changes too fast. So really what you want to do is pick a set of variables, stick with it, run it until you understand it. That means strain, that means lights, that means fans. Once you know what that strain is going to do in your grow and you have some expectation of what you're going to yield, how long it's going to take, what you're going to get in the end quality-wise, then you'll at least be able to see, is that extra $300 or $400 that I spent on a CO2 upgrade, am I ever going to see that money back? Or am I just pissing more CO2 into the air in my grow and it's not being utilized properly by the plants?
You're sucking it out somewhere or something. Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. We brought up online, buying some stuff online like Craigslist and shit. But I think there are a couple things maybe you don't want to buy like that. And anything you can't get in and clean. Really scared me, because like a DHU, especially if it came from a garden already, you don't know what that garden had. You don't know what that garden has.
You should assume they had. You should assume they had all of the stuff. Assume they had it. That's why they shut the grow down.
Like the fans, like even that has some like internal stuff there. It's kind of like, but it's like,
I don't like to reuse fans either. Tables, lights. Lights if you can get them clean, like you said. Fans are one of those things that I just don't buy used. There's no way you're ever going to clean it. There is a trick. So I think we talked about this on one of the other podcasts. This is a little trick you can do. If you get shit like that you're a little bit iffy on, you go get you some contractor bags from Lowe's, Home Depot. These are the ones that are like you could put 2 bodies in them, right? It's a huge plastic bag, and you throw your stuff in it with a ozone generator, right? You wrap your bag up. Ozone generator,
UV bulb,
probably
an ozone
get
bulb. They make them
ozone
so cheap.
generators are much cheaper and much easier to use. I just want to preface this. This should be done outside. You don't do this in your grow, in your house, but you can get a little ozone generator for probably under $100 on Amazon, $60. Throw it in a contractor bag with whatever it is, your lamps, your fans, whatever gear that you just bought from stranger on Craigslist. And then you just nuke it for a couple cycles with the ozone. Ozone will kill anything that is still there. This should be done in addition to like bleach or rubbing alcohol or, depending on what we're cleaning. Don't use bleach and water on your lamps. It's an alcohol situation. But, bleach and water on the tables and everything else. Yeah. But, that will help you if you buy stuff like that. Or if you're a regular, I like to just shop at the local Craigslist and buy cheap gear. That's a really good way to get stuff clean and guarantee that it's clean. But yeah, I mean, all of the pests, all the bugs, all the mold, assume they had all of that.
So the ozone generator, it uses like a special bulb inside, and pushes air through with a fan. And you can now, I'm not sure when they started doing this.
Oh, they do dual units now? Like UV
you can
and
just
ozone?
buy the bulb.
Oh, wow.
So the big thing about just buying the bulb without a fan is that the actual spectrum, like the UV that comes off of it, is much more dangerous than the ozone it creates. Because it
UV light is dangerous. You don't want
to be around it at all.
Ozone is very, very, very dangerous as well. I just want to preface that these are not things that your novice grower is going to use, but they are tools that if you go buying used gear and you just absolutely want to get stuff clean, there are ways to get, gear clean. These should definitely be done with utmost caution. I don't ever recommend UV near anybody, anything. Like the thing that I'm talking about, I don't think we're talking about the same thing because this isn't necessarily a lamp. I'm not entirely sure what's happening in this little box, but it's literally just a little box and it just starts breathing out this toxic, noxious gas and it kills everything. Like it will kill you if there's enough of it in there. To it. Yeah. And I'm sure somebody who's more technically minded can explain to you what it is. But it's the same thing they use in hotels to like bomb the smoking rooms and shit. They just put one of these things in there and just let it run for, 24 hours and it nukes everything. Smell, it nukes bugs, it nukes PM spores, everything. But it will kill you if you're not careful.
Maybe we're talking about something else. It is UV. And it does create ozone, what I'm talking about. And I know the little boxes, like there's ozone generators that are like little boxes. There's a little fan, and there's a little bulb in there like glows blue.
So for years, there were 2 types, right? With UV. You had the type that you see at the hospital, which is like a little blue light on the wall. And then there was also, for years, you could get them in commercial growing or just an HVAC where it's like in an inline ducting with a fan and it's a whole big box unit and you would pipe it in with like proper ducting and everything like that. Yeah. This is just literally what I'm talking about is literally a box that's probably 12 by 12 by 4. It's just a little box with a dial on it. Yeah. And you can put it in a bag with your, with your fans or with your lamps if you needed to. And you can it runs this ozone gas and it kills anything. Kills dead.
Yeah.
Like Raid.
Listen, man, I've been in growing for 30 years. There's nothing that kills mites. After the nuclear bombs go off, there will be mites and cockroaches and bed bugs on this planet. They will restart and all this shit will go on.
Anything that can survive a month without its head is going to live through all of us, and that is a cockroach, ladies and gentlemen out there. They can live for a month headless.
Mites can breed asexually, so one mite can make 1 million mites in a month, a couple weeks.
They're a lot of fun.
And there's nothing that's going to guarantee to kill. There's very little that kills mites.
Yeah. Yeah, they fucking, especially since like you talk about some ornamentals, and ornamentals have to really pinch pennies, so sometimes it's not even an option. But they can use systemics, and so like a nice systemic can get in there and do a pretty good job on like 99.99% of the mites. And if you do it right, you know, your IPM right, you don't get that resistant population. Hopefully,
No, bro, that's the problem. That's the problem, though. So when I got to Colorado, I went in many a grow that had mallet resistant, avid resistant entire populations. They would take that shit and they would smile in your face. They would throw a web right across your room, no problem. And that's the problem, is that bugs, especially those bugs, are intensely resilient. They will build immunity to anything very quickly. Most insects. It's why so many insecticides have to change their formulation so often, is because they become resistant so easily. And if you think you got a problem, pesticide resistant mites is a problem you don't want.
I saw something today about about mites on fucking TikTok. A farmer doing this for years. A yellow Solo cup, and you spread Vaseline all over it. I'm being 100% serious, okay? And you either tie it to the fence where you're if you're doing outdoor, indoor, or you tie it to a stake. This dude swore that he doesn't get mites at all, and you looked at it. He timed it and saw, like, by the end of the season, it was like fucking couple thousand.
I'm gonna be very honest with you. I've seen impressed. A lot of weed. I've seen a lot of outdoor weed. I've seen a lot of outdoor food crops. I don't know if I've ever seen an outdoor plot of weed that had zero mites. I don't know if I've ever seen it. Like, it's just one of those natural parts of growing weed outdoors, is that most organic, or even organic, non-organic, no matter how you grow outdoors, part of growing outdoors is accepting you're probably going to throw part of your crop in the trash. That's right. Just how it goes.
But I was impressed. So if
that sounds awesome, but it's
he probably still had some mites, but there was a lot of fucking mites on that yellow cup.
Yeah.
I was quite impressed.
Outside can be, you lose a lot of it, but it is definitely a way to, I think we talked about it before, save a little money also. Especially you go after that early auto. You hit because you can't, if you hit photo periods as early as you can in the season, your plant is gonna be so fucking huge. Yeah. You have like an auto period where, especially if you have a little space to grow inside, you get an auto run in, you get a little area outside, you get a little 10-gallon pot or something.
Bro, this all depends on where you live, though. That's the discussion that nobody really has. Like, everywhere, even in just the United States, we have so many different microclimates that depending on where you live, it can be drastically different than somewhere else. So you go to Oregon, I always joked you could take a popsicle stick in Oregon, stick it in the ground, and a redwood tree would grow. Everything there was so green. It's so lush. But you go to a place like Southwest Colorado or Denver even, like, it's some of the most inhospitable growing conditions on the planet. And the only way you're really going to grow weed in that efficiently is indoors or in a greenhouse or in some sort of enclosure. And it's like, it's so funny because the East Coast in general, horrible for growing weed. Great place to grow, terrible for things like humidity, mold, rot, bugs, all of the normal issues. But then there's other places where it's so dry and it's so, so there's a lot that goes into just throwing a plant in your backyard. I've seen a lot of people try that and just stick a plant out there and then realize, like, this wasn't what I was thinking it was going to be. I thought this was just a house plant and it was just going to grow.
No.
What's a weed? It just grows, right?
With this plant I got growing outside, it's been raining so much, like, not every day, but just enough of good rain to where it's like I watered it. I put some fucking nutrients in my water and let it sit outside, get the fucking. I've used it, but we've been getting a lot of good rain, nice rain, and it's been
a really
like,
wet summer. It was like a dry spring and a wet summer.
Yeah, it's been actually really nice for my plant. I don't have to water it every day with. I just let God do its fucking thing, and nature do its thing with the rainwater. It's been nice. So I watched this plant.
Been loving it.
Yeah, and we grew one out. We grew a plant outside every year got little ones growing. But last year we had caterpillars. About 50% of that plant was out. Goodbye. It's just what you should do. I don't want to fucking put pesticide on my shit. I do put
diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth is the best thing.
I do put it on there, but when the buds were getting big and flower, I was still trying to do it, but not getting it on my flower.
Then you run into an issue that like that stuff doesn't. Nobody ever tells you this. That stuff doesn't really work as well when it's wet. So like once you put it on your outdoor plants, as soon as it gets wet, now it's kind of a mess and it's
goopy.
I had the same issue my first grow outdoors. I came out one day and my plant is dying, and I had a big 2.5 foot beautiful bud top cola, and it's just yellowing and dying, and I'm shitting myself. I had crawled through the woods to get to this spot, and I'm like, this is my all in. And I had maybe 4 or 5 plants in different little patches in the forest where the light hit. And I look around and I'm going through all the checklists and everything I can think of, and I just see this little hole at the base, and this fucker had climbed all the way up the center stem and was eating the stalk inside just below where my bud was. And at this point, the bud was dead. The plant was about to die. Like, it was nothing I can do.
Bastards.
Happened within 48 hours at least. Yeah.
Crazy. I will say this.
Also outside.
I will say this, that fucking drink Mrs. Weedman made me with the infused honey. Whew.
Yeah. Good.
Like one-eyed Jake all the way home if I had to drive.
So one of my favorite things to do is to spray diatomaceous earth and put a little soap in there to lower the water tension, and it adds some sulfur to it. And it works so well. I think sulfur is like when we talk about the famous flushing theory, right? There's people that are like, sulfur sucks so bad, and I get the negatives to it, but I think sulfur indoors doesn't make sense because it doesn't like really kill a ton of stuff. It's just that things don't like it. But outdoors, it makes so much fucking sense because it's like there's so much other shit to eat. Just don't eat these plants.
It has to be used very sparingly, and it can only be used at certain times. And that's the huge nuance. So I used to do a ton of like, I don't do as much these days just because I got other shit to do, but I used to do a ton of like hash processing where I would like process people's hash. I would wash hash for people. And I had this dude, we did a batch of rosin, and this is in the earliest days of rosin, still pressing hair straighteners, but we would do small commercial batches. People would give us material. We'd wash it. We'd press it, yada, yada, yada. So I do a run for this guy, and it does terribly. Like it does, there's no yield whatsoever. It's one of those batches as a hash maker where you just drop because you're like, I don't know what happened here, but there's nothing. And I followed all the same steps that I do every other time, and there's nothing here. But what I did have, I pressed, and we split like we were supposed to, whatever. So I go to dab the little bit that I had gotten out of it, and it was the nastiest thing I've ever smoked in my entire life. It was like somebody had hot farted right into my mouth, and I knew the minute that I hit, I threw up. It was one of the only times in my whole life that I ever gagged and threw up from a single dab. But I did this dab of flour of hash rosin, and I just vomited. And it was because the dude had clearly used sulfur at some point and didn't do anything else to it, and it was still all over the flowers. And that explained also why this batch of hash didn't produce anything, because he likely was spraying shit and doing all kinds of other shit during the process. Perils of hash making. Sure.
You can also so I like feeding sulfur, like just like to flowering plants every now and again. But when I was going through like my experiments with it, because there wasn't a ton of information out there, like, okay, when do you get the wettable powder? When do you top dress with it? What's too much, and this and that. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it once. And I was like, I think I noticed that, and I'm gonna do it twice during flower, and it's just top dressing. I don't like spraying anything in my flower room. I hope that the stuff sticks around on my stems and stuff, like the DE and the any like alcohol or oils or anything, just to kind of like, I don't know.
You know, Photo Plus. Are you familiar with Photo Plus?
Photo Plus.
Photosynthesis Plus. It's the bacterial stuff that smells horrid like rotten eggs and shit.
Bottle.
Yeah. So what they don't tell you is the reason it smells like rotten eggs is because it's largely some form of sulfur. It's like a form of sulfur, which is really great in tiny little batches. But I didn't know this the first time I used it, and I kind of overused it. And you start to see the first signs of sulfur toxicity, which is like everything from the top of your plant down from the centers turns yellow. And so straight down your buds will start turning yellow. Everything starts turning bright yellow. But yeah, sulfur is another one of those that definitely necessary, definitely helps with terpene production in some capacity, but can definitely be overdone very easily.
Yeah. No, I found that out. I was like, okay, I got to 3 times in a flowering period. I was like, okay, I'm gonna, when it starts to build, and then I'm gonna hit every stage, middle flower, and when it starts to finish, it's gonna be searching for nutrients, So 3 times. So that turned out this shit's getting raunchy, It turned fruity strains raunchy. And I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna try it every week. And my goodness, if it wasn't just some disgusting, like the weed just got like almost still sulfuric, and like I just didn't do anything with most of it, but it was definitely like.
So there's a form of molasses that you can get, if I'm not mistaken, that has sulfur in it, and that's why so much of it says unsulfured, is because obviously it's not beneficial if you want something sweet to also taste like hot farts in your mouth. But it's a great thing to use in your grow because it's really good to use in those late, kind of just before flush, getting ready for the end, but not quite at the end. I like to use a little bit of that.
Rocking things up a little bit, I feel like.
It also just kicks those terps into like all that oil production seems to go up a notch.
My hardest adjustment with it was running organics, because I felt like it wasn't like the organics probably wasn't going to like what the sulfur was doing. And so a lot of the funguses that I use for anything in IPM in my soil and flower, it was always hard to go around that, but super badass. I don't think people use sulfur enough.
Yeah, like I said, just got to be sparing. It's like a lot of things when we get into this, no matter what we're talking about, a little bit is usually good. A lot of most things can go, become a problem real fast. And sulfur is one of those things that it's in growing cannabis. There's a few reasons why we need it or want it, but you don't need much of it. It's like the whole, we'll eventually make the CalMag joke, right? Because we always end up on a CalMag joke or two. But it's another one of those things where you go, well, those are both important, but they're not so important that every grow problem should be attributed to not enough CalMag, right? Like the reality is they're micronutrients. They're not super important. But that's why it became a cliche joke, right? Is because if you go onto Reddit, if you go onto your own Instagram page, if you go onto any social page right now, you go, I got a problem. What do you think it is? There will be at least one person, straight face, that says CalMag.
We're not ending the show yet, though. We're not ending the show yet. Can't end it yet. We got too much more to go on.
Some of these things you don't need a ton of. You don't need a lot of it. So you don't really need to pour raw. I hate to blow your cover, guys. We don't need to pour raw CalMag into your pots. It's a joke. It's a joke.
You do need a little extra if you have cocoa, though.
If you're running cocoa, you absolutely need CalMag. But CalMag is important. Or if you got hard water, you don't need as much CalMag, because the thing that's hard in your water is probably
got enough calcium in there, magnesium in the water. It's good for you too. Better
number one money saver that we haven't talked about yet is to have a fucking clean garden and not have to spend all your extra money on pesticides and different biologicals, and not have to fucking lose yields, and not have to run your lights for no reasons.
Yep. I'm going to take
that clean garden.
I'm going to take Terp's advice and just take an ozone bomb and throw it in my fucking tent and be like, get after it, bitches.
Only if you're in a room. Only if it's in a sealed space. Like if you do that in your home, something not nice is gonna happen. Ozone is dangerous. I got to throw that out there again, because when we joke about a lot of things, somebody will see this and go do some sketchy stuff with ozone.
Yeah, don't listen to Mr. Weedman. I'm just joking.
Please do not be bombing your house with ozone. Ozone only works in closed, confined situations and away from people.
I'm just gonna throw it in the big trash bags and put it outside. clean my shit.
That absolutely can be done. No problem.
See, I learned something from this guy.
Problems.
Every time we do the show, I learn a few 2-3 things.
But it is effective. It does. You're right, and you can ozonate water too. Have you ever seen people do that out of like a box, throwing just like a air pump in a tub, and just running it into the water, and the extra ozone molecules can like.
All I can think right now is I just watched this documentary about the lady that essentially was running a cult, and then she ended up killing herself with colloidal silver. And all I can think about right now is the lady that OD'd on colloidal silver because she heard it on a podcast or something silly like that.
Remember, everybody,
don't put ozone in that water.
No, just throw it in a bag outside. Kills
ozone
you.
It's funny because like it was one of those like grow tricks that like in the right situation it's unbelievably effective. But of all the things that we talk about and use and joke about and in commercial, it's one of the few that will hurt you, you know.
Disclaimer right now. Ozone can hurt you.
Well, I mean, when we even get into like things like pesticides, like most of the pesticides are dangerous. They're not the sort of things that you want to spray, be around. If it's effective at what it does, you don't want it touching you, breathing it. You don't want to be around it. And that I think there's a little bit of like knowledge is great in that people understand and hear these things. And the first place they find it isn't at a grow shop when they have a problem, that you learn a little bit about the problem before you're in a, oh shit, what do I do situation? And the grow guy at the store goes, well, I got this stuff called Avid and it will definitely kill your bugs. It will definitely get rid of your bugs. And here's how you're going to use it. He's not going to tell you that it's really not something you want to be smoking. It's really not something you want to be spraying, breathing, or being around. And that goes for a lot of the things that they sell at the grocery store. Those guys at the grocery store, as good of what they do, as awesome as they are, as valuable a resource as they can be, it's also a job. It's them making money. This is what they do. So if they can put you out the door with a solution, even if it's not the best solution, they're going to do that to make that dollar. They're going to send you home with a bottle of Eagle 20, and they're not going to tell you really what it is, and they're going to send you home and tell you, this is going to get rid of your powdery mildew problem. You just wear this suit, and you just put this respirator on, and you spray. No, bro. So, like I said, knowing these things, there are a lot of things in weed that you can't see, but that can definitely hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. That's one of the things, the ornamentals, like we were saying before. Some of the ornamentals get those systemics. That's really what the part there to look for is a half-life and then double that shit, at least. If you want to work with anything, like you get a fucking half-life and double it, at least. There's no spraying in flour or being like, oh, 45 days. Like, no. Like,
nothing, I'm going to just say it. Nothing should ever be sprayed on flowering weed if the goal is for it to be consumed.
Yeah, because you have to smoke that shit. Ugh.
Yeah. And to be honest, here's the reality, right? And it's kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Prevention is going to be so much easier than trying to spray away your problems. By the time you're trying to look for a spray to spray on your weed to solve a problem, that problem is in all reality beyond your fixation right now. The reality is by the time you see spider mite webs, you've lost. You've lost the battle. The reality is if you're anywhere beyond veg and you see spider mites, you've lost the battle. The battle is over. It was a valiant fight. You were probably best off to start the fuck over and not bring in cuts next time. But, if you're in veg and you see a couple bugs here or there, it's still salvageable. There are some things you can do. But like we talked about earlier, if it's going to kill one of the most resilient creatures on the planet, there's a very high chance it will kill you or hurt you too. A lot of those sort of things when it comes to like pesticides, fungicides, pest prevention situations, a lot of them are not safe. They're not great, Yeah.
So what about saving on some food?
Saving on food? Nutrient food?
nutrient line.
Most nutrient lines are telling you to use twice as much of what you really need. So no matter what nutrient you're using, you can probably use less of it. Generally, they're all the same shit, just broken into a different number of bottles. That's the thing. The other thing that the hydro guys are going to tell you, if you go and buy a nutrient line that has 12 bottles for their whole line, you go buy one that has 4 or 5 bottles, they probably have the same shit. They just split it up into more bottles, which if you're a higher level grower and have that little bit of, tailorability, or to be able to kind of make those smaller, finer changes, that might be a good thing. Most growers don't know what to do with 9 bottles of nutrients, if you're using bottled nutrients, obviously. When it comes to stuff like organics, I generally found the same thing, man. Like, cannabis is a heavy feeder, but at the end of the day, it's real easy to put too much of anything. It's really easy to add a little bit more, right? And so many of the problems that we see are almost toxicity related versus I didn't give enough. If I see somebody that's asking me, like, what's wrong with my plant, and they tell me I didn't feed it anything, then it's pretty easy to see what the issue is. But almost all of the other problems that are nutrient related are almost always too much. It's almost never that I didn't give enough nitrogen, because so many of the products we use have so much nitrogen in it, have so much of the NPK stuff that we, if you're using a balanced bottled nutrient, I generally tend to err with half of what they recommend. So if they're telling you use 5 mil a gallon, I'll come in at 2 mil early, finish mid-veg 3 mil, and then maybe I'll step up when I get into flower when I need that extra little boost. But that's another great example of money spent is money you don't have at harvest time. The more money you spend on things like nutrients, the more times you're feeding, the more nutrients you're feeding, especially if we go above what the plant can utilize, you're just wasting money. You're just pissing your money down the toilet.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that too, because like people will talk about, oh, well, this nutrient line, you run it full and it runs at like a 2.6 or 2.7 or something. If you're talking about an EC, we'll talk about EC so we don't have to talk about part per million, 700, 500 type shit. Well, a big part of, let's say even higher, like an Athena. A big part of underfeeding a plant is predicting a buildup. And so like really.
Whoa, hold on. I hate to interrupt you because I had to be the one that had to go Google because I do everything in ppm. I had to go. Did you say 2.7?
My bad.
2.7?
Yeah, exactly. That's what like Athena, bro, will come
2.7?
out like a 2.7. Dog.
Bro, listen. I'm gonna be real honest with you. If you're getting over a 2.0 EC or 1,000 ppm, you are into heavy feeding territory. Unless you're running in a warehouse, unlimited ceiling space, or you're just running massive fucking plants, the chances that your plants are using that much there's no chance. So if you're running a drain to waste situation, you're just pissing all your money down the toilet because most of it's just going to go through your run anyway. Right. Yeah. But
that's a big part of that.
Yeah.
Because people will talk about like, so it came out, there was a article that came out from, man, dude, I don't want to say like Bruce Bigby or whatever, and it's not him, but somebody, and they're like the perfect EC for a plant is a 1.8. And then people talk about, because bro, the EC on Athena literally is up in the 3s. Like if you run their full line, and there's tons of runoff and all kinds of shit.
Well, you've got to run. Yeah, exactly. First of all, if you're running that high of a setup, you've got to be running tons of waste.
Huge runoff.
You've got to be running huge runoff because the first time you don't, you're going to lock.
Well, and then
the first time you don't do all that crazy runoff, you're going to lock immediately.
When you talk about like cutting, and let's say you cut it from the 2 to the 1, the EC in half when you feed it, a lot of that you're going to get that buildup. You're going to get a slight buildup. Yeah. So it's not like your plant's eating a 1.0 EC the whole time.
So here's the thing: nutrient companies make more money by you using more nutrients. Period. So the more that you use, especially if that just goes through the drain, the more of that you use, the more that they make in you having to use more and more and more. There will always be buildup because what we're feeding is essentially salt. And the moment you're feeding that much salt, of course you're going to have a huge issue. Like it's irrational to be using anything above a 2.0. I mean, like I said, unless you're running huge bushes or you're running hydro and you've got unlimited ceiling space. Like there are a few niche, you're running CO2 in a warehouse and you've got unlimited ceiling space and you can run those big, 3-a-light knockers. Yeah, that's definitely, you could definitely get away with it. But the reality is, if you're running anything that high, you're just pissing your money away.
Damn,
there's no two ways about it. Because the reality is,
pretty good,
you aren't using that much. Yeah. No, so as far as newts go, man, most of it's the same. I like to pick a base, right? So if you pick a nutrient line that has 4 parts to a base, that's crazy. Most of them are either 1 part or a 2-part base. Then you essentially just need a nitrogen supplement. You need a phosphorus supplement for flower. And if you're running in soilless, you need CalMag, right? That's just a little bit. This is a couple mil per gallon. And it's only because, like I said, if you got hard ass water, you might not need it. It's if you run organic, you probably don't even understand what the CalMag jokes. They go right over your head. Every time you hear people talk about CalMag, you feel like the guy in the corner at the party, because those guys. It's the same with ppm. They don't know what that is. That's a language they don't speak. They don't understand it. I love organic growers and I love organic weed, but the reality is there's a couple of those things that those guys they don't know what that is. They have no idea. This discussion just right over.
Yeah.
Twice said.
The CalMag especially, they don't understand what are you talking? What is all the CalMag?
They're newbies.
Yeah.
They're newbies. I'm still a newbie. I love being a newbie because I get to sit here for almost an hour and 40 minutes and hear some knowledge. Last thing is reusing soil in pots wise.
Pots, yeah, absolutely. Pots. Scrub them pots with bleach or with something in between, with some sort of sanidate or some sort of, I've seen everything in the commercial industry. The big one lately has been vinegar-based cleaners. Which is not my favorite thing, but yeah, pots absolutely. I'm not a big fan of soft pots, personally. Like I just don't really like, cloth pots or anything like that. Just because it becomes a bacteria trap eventually. You can only clean it so many times and truly get it clean.
I learned to use I learned to use them once and then
that's it. It's a single use item pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's like the smart pot does seem to be like, if you're gonna reuse it, they're like plastic pots, basically plastic woven pots. But any of those organic ones, any of the ones like remade from this or anything that like the cheaper ones, like you can't fucking. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to reuse those.
Yeah,
just getting the roots out of them.
Yeah,
because they're all grown through the side of the pot and shit. Yeah. It's so fucking rough.
As far as soil. I don't know that anybody's going to love my answer here, but I'm not a big fan of reusing it. And I know it's not the most ecological solution. I know it's not it's probably not the best for the environment, but find a place to deal with it and get rid of it. Like find a garden somewhere where somebody wants to grow some veg or something where you can dump it or be rid of it. But I'm going to be honest with you. If you're running a perpetual grow situation, where you're running like a living soil and you're running in the same soil every single time, then yeah, you're gonna want to reuse it. But as far as like cocoa goes, the point where you finish, right? The point where you finish your plants off at the end of flowering, the difference between that and where you need to be for veg in cocoa is so great that to flux that back to a neutral solution where there's not tons of phosphorus that you've now been, feeding up until the end of flowering and then flush, and getting back to a completely neutral place and the completely neutral where you could put fresh plants and fresh stuff and feel confident that it's clean enough that you're not going to just have other issues, nutrient lockout so much. No, it's just not worth it. Like, and to be honest, people don't love this answer. Most commercial grows don't reuse medium. It's just the way that it goes. It's the cheapest option. It's the cleanest option, because the minute you have a problem, that problem is now systemic to everything that's got to use that soil. And it's the same problem with living soil that all the living soil guys don't love to talk about, is that living soil is great. It's a great way to grow dank herb until you have a problem. And then you don't have a fix. You can't just make bugs go away. You can't just snap your fingers and make PM go away. You can't just mitigate problems on the fly. So now you're in a situation where you pretty much have to get rid of your soil and start over. And I've seen that in a lot of those sort of grows where dudes set up these grows, big bins, big totes, big tubs, some situation in a box or something. And then they get a problem. And it's like getting rid of systemic problems when you have to keep your soil around is really tough, if not impossible. Like I said, those mites, they want to live. They want to live.
The yellow cup with the Vaseline, you might get some of them. I saw it. I saw a farmer.
I don't have a systemic bug problem, or I would try it. It's one of those things we always joke about when people ask me if I have strains that are resilient to bugs. I'm like, I tend to be pretty resilient to bugs, so I just avoid them like the plague. And so I don't know anybody that just keeps a bug problem around so that they can, test their strains against the bugs. So what most people do is they just throw a bunch of plants outside, and then the one that doesn't get eaten by the bugs, they say, well, that's the resistant one, right? I think the reality is there's just terpene profiles bugs don't like. So there's certain terpene profiles. As you see, they now make 1 million bug sprays that are essentially just terpene extracts. Right? That's the new safe bug type of thing that you see all over the place. And that's the reality of it, is that I think there's just strains, whether it be like lemongrass is one that I see a lot used really heavy.
Oils,
geranium oil or something like that. Yeah. They're just the same thing. Essentially, I think there's just terpene profiles that they don't like. I don't think it's really that plant is doing something to push the bugs away. I think the reality is there's just certain terpene profiles that bugs really find attractive, and then there's certain ones that they can't stand. And so that's why you see if you put 10 plants outside, one of them might not get hit. I don't know that it was like throwing elbows any better than its neighbors. I think it just had a terpene profile that the bugs didn't like.
Yeah.
Terp, man, I want to say, listen, everybody out there in the world that's going to hear this. This is our 78th episode of the Grow Hour. And I will tell you this. You all just got some hour and 42 minutes of knowledge. Some ball busting, some fun shit. Take this episode because Terp came around again and wanted to hang out. And I appreciate the fuck out of you throwing that knowledge. That is an hour and 45 minutes you're going to be able to just fucking... And Mrs. Weedman, you got old daddy fucked up here with that honey. Oh boy. I got to go upstairs right now and say, how much fucking honey did you put in that? Whew.
Talk about that honey.
All of it.
Oh, talk about that honey pack.
I got to give you the honey when you come on Sunday. Anyway, Big Earl, Terp, anything else before we go? Plug away. Tell us where we can find you. It's your fault. The honey, Mrs. Weedman. I am fucking stoned. I've been stoned. You are too? Come here. Come say hello to everybody real quick. She can't. She can't move so good either.
The old honey.
The old honey. You didn't give any of the Yuki, right? All right, perfect. All right. We love you, Terp.
Terpfiend.com for all your seed needs. www.terpfi3nd.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, X, wherever you
The cord. I love seeing you on the cord. I always fucking every day. I'm on the cord almost every day, and I see if Terp's got a message. I check it. Terp, you got a good crew on the cord.
Oh, man, the Discord's been awesome. And I'm going to be honest with you. That's one of those things that operates kind of as an independent state I'm as hands-on as I need to be with it, but I generally let that be its own community. And those guys, I didn't want it to be a place where people couldn't post good or bad about my work or whatever and feel like they couldn't be honest about whatever situation they had or whatever problem. So it's been an open forum generally. I don't get too hands-on with it, but the Discord community has been awesome to me. Those guys are super cool. Go check
out a good Discord.
Yeah, like I said, I keep all my link tree on all my socials, so you can find all of our different stuff through socials that way. But terpfiend.com for the seeds.
Sweet. Love it. Thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you giving us that knowledge. I love it. Love it.
It's
Big
always
Earl,
easy.
love you too, brother. Can't wait to see you this Sunday. Before I go there was something we didn't talk about. The honey. What does that honey need more of?
More cow
We all know. Yeah.
More cow back. Thanks, Terp. Thanks, Big Earl. We love you, everybody out there. Peace. Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.